The Breadwinners. I'm Jennifer Owens.
I'm Rachel Ellison.
And this is the show where you, me, and everyone listening is talking about work and family, chores, school, all the things. Summer vacation, by the time this comes out, it's going to be, oh my God, hopefully we've all already paid for all the summer camps.
Right. That would be helpful.
Oh my Lord. I'm already in this conversation. So for the pandemic, one of the things that worked in our favor was, destroyed my children's mental health, but it saved our finances, was that we didn't pay for any sort of summer programming. And now that's back in a big way. And I'm like, oh my God, how did we ever pay for stuff in the past? So anywho, are your kids do they have do you have summer plans?
One is doing sleepaway camp for the first time.
Yeah.
And that's exciting. We'll see how that goes. And then the other one is doing drama camp and some other stuff.
Yeah, where you stitch it all together. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
For sure. Mine is going away to be the counselor at a sleepaway camp. That's what one of them's doing. And the other one is doing two techie computer programming, something or another, sciencey sort of stuff at NYU this summer, because that's what they graduate into when they're teens. So, and guess what? Still costs you just the same as sleepaway camp.
Did not know that. Interesting.
The worst crock for those of you when your children get to be 15 going on 16, isn't that when you're 15 going on 16? Yeah. Isn't that what's Julie Andrews? Oh my God, what's the movie? A Sound of Music. Oh my God, my head is shutting down. That when your daughter's sleepaway camp, and she ends up loving it because she has camp friends and there's a camp counselor, camp culture. They will come to you and say, she could be a counselor in training.
Right.
And you're like, oh, that's awesome, and kind of graduating, a little bit more responsibility and blah, blah, blah. And it's a path. And at least at my daughter's camp, it just meant that I had to only pay half the sleepaway camp price. So got to pay for the privilege of my kid working for you. So just saying.
Did not know that.
Anywho, well, I'm already off on a tangent, but I would like to say that this is The Breadwinners, and that the best way to support us on our lovely podcast as we're coming into a close for season 4 is to share The Breadwinners with a fellow breadwinner. And, once you get to know us, you love us, right?
You love us. You cannot.
We're on all the socials, which are pretty much at The Breadwinners Pod. And we have the website. We're on all the podcast platforms. If you want to listen to us on something that I don't use, it's totally fine. The podcast is there. So there you go.
And we have merch.
Yeah.
Don't forget about our merch. Everybody who listens to us can actually wear.
You can wear us. Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a link in the show notes, and come join us and wear. I swear to goodness, my Breadwinners, the white one is my favorite t-shirt. I wear it all the freaking time. So I do need to do the one that our in-house design team, i.e. Brett Sunshine, made. That, what is it? It's like, I came for the coffee. What does that one say? And I'm out of coffee. I don't know. He thought it was very funny. It is funny. And I've completely forgot the joke and I don't know. So welcome to The Breadwinners. And we are going to take 1 second right here to hear from our sponsor.
Growing a successful business has never been easy. But whether you're navigating a complex industry or trying to reinvent one, our breadth of banking experts are here to collaborate on market-proven solutions. At KeyBank, we're built to grow with your changing needs because we're not just here for the business you are now, we're here for the business you'll become. Reimagine business as usual. KeyBank opens doors. Learn more at key.com/B2B.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
And we're back.
We're back.
This week, I'm handing the reins to you. What are we talking about this week?
So there is a person named Sheryl Sandberg. Are you familiar with this person?
No, I have no idea who this person is.
So she currently is the chief operating officer of a company called Meta, formerly known as Facebook. And she announced a couple weeks ago, June 1st, that she is stepping down in the fall of 2022.
This is new information.
Yes, she is stepping down. And she did something else, though, in addition to a very, very impressive career path that she's taken. She wrote a book, which you may or may not have heard of, called
I'm going to lean
In.
back while you tell me about this book.
It's called Lean In.
Oh, I went the wrong direction.
So she wrote that book, and she, in many ways, I think she saw herself, and many people also see her as an advocate for women, for women's advancement in the workplace. There are conflicting opinions about whether or not she really is the champion that she purports to be.
Right.
Which we will talk about shortly. But just to talk a little bit, it's helpful to think about her biography when we talk about
what led her there.
That she's sending, right? So she grew up in a upper middle class Jewish family. She lived in North Miami Beach. She went to Harvard. She graduated summa cum laude, and she met. While she was there, she founded some organization called Women in Economics and Government. She also,
I think I'm going to be thinking of the song "Dayenu" through this whole litany of all her achievements.
Well, this point is really noteworthy to me that we'll come back to in a little while. While she was at Harvard, she met Lawrence Summers,
yes,
who became her mentor and thesis advisor, and also became the president of Harvard for a time. And he recruited her to be his research assistant at the World Bank. She sort of thought about, do I want to focus on public health and economic development across the world, or do I want to go to business school? So she went back to business school. And so she went to Harvard Business School. You may have heard that also. Yeah. Okay. And she earned her MBA with the highest distinction.
Jeez Louise, Dayenu. I mean, right. That would be enough.
Right. And then she went on to have, again, this very impressive career. So before she joined Facebook, she was the vice president of global online sales and operations at Google.
Right.
And she...
By the way, the second Google executive we have now discussed on the Breadwinners this season. Melissa Mayer, right?
True. All the ladies at Google.
All the ladies.
So, yeah. So she did a great job in her career. And then in late 2007, she was at a party. It was a Christmas party held by a Jewish guy. That's another story. And she met a young man named Mark Zuckerberg. So he really, at the time, wasn't thinking about hiring a COO, but he kind of fell in work love with Sheryl Sandberg.
Yep.
And she was hired in March 2008. So that was kind of her trajectory, her path to Facebook. But there's this interesting kind of parallel path that around 2010, and I'm sure before this, but in 2010, she launched her TED Talk. Do you remember this TED Talk?
No.
Why we have too few women leaders.
Wow.
And it was basically, this became kind of the preview of what her book was about.
Really?
Yes. And we will include the link in our episode notes. But she had a 3-part advice. She had 3 pieces of advice, and
which is TED Talk like, right?
Which is
give us the actionable items. Got it. Yep.
So I just sent you her 3.
Oh. 1, sit at the table. 2, make your partner a real partner. And 3, don't leave before you leave. Oh, I remember the don't leave before you leave. That's right. That's coming back to me. Right.
So I want to dive into lean in a few minutes, but I think it's really helpful for us to think about the game of pinball that started around conversations about women in the workplace. That arguably she played a large role in, launching that pinball. I'm doing a horrible job with my metaphors here, but she's basically saying that women kind of undermine their own success by
choosing the wrong partners, right?
Choosing the wrong partners. But before that's one of the points that is really, there's a couple points, there's a lot of points in there in Lean In that I just really am like, cool, thanks, Sheryl. You look at your pedigree, look at your experiences, and like you're very privileged. And later on in her tenure at Facebook, she started to, and after personal life changes, she started to actually like acknowledge, wait, I didn't realize when I wrote this book that like,
we all didn't start out this way, with a great supportive partner, with an education that is, sterling,
being white and
and connected, because she does become very connected, which is great.
Yeah.
And to have a sponsor. A lot of the time we were at Working Mother, we were talking a lot about sponsorship, which is different from mentorship, where sponsors take an interest in your career, they pull you along, or they're when conversations are being had and they say, who could we consider for this big stretch assignment? They put your name forward. And from the beginning, she had Larry Summers, who is an interesting character. Go look him up and his.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode about Larry Summers, but
in any case, in this situation, he was supportive of her and gave her and brought her along with opportunities that she earned, by the way.
That's the thing.
Completely hardworking, smart as a whip, and then was able to take the opportunity and then run with it, which is awesome.
So I mean, she's incredibly
singular.
Impressive.
She's singular, right?
Yeah.
She's Sheryl Sandberg, Yeah.
Yeah. So, as we'll sort of shift back and forth between these 2 pieces of her, 2 areas of accomplishment, right? This thought leadership and advocacy for women in the workplace and her Facebook.
Her amazing success to take, I think it's something like she took $135 million revenue from advertising and turned it into billions and billions of dollars.
Yes.
That's what she did at Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah. You said that part.
Yeah.
So she really transformed the company in, I want to say immeasurable ways, but actually quite measurable. And in 2012, she became the 8th member of Facebook's board of directors, the first woman as well. So she's knocked so much out of the park. It's really, remarkable. I think when her book first came out, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, when her book first came out, I was one of them. I think I was interviewed on WNYC, just in somebody came and got a snippet from me, and I was I talked about my objections, which we'll get into. I know I'm kind of alluding to it, but I was pretty quick. I hadn't even read it, and but on purpose, it hadn't come out yet, and they're like, "What do you think about this idea?" And I was like, "I don't think it takes into account what." The systems that are in play that are working against women, which is essentially a pretty big argument against what she created. But, but I think there's a lot that it.
Yes. I mean, to talk about that book, I'm telling you, I was once walking down the street and there were 3 women younger than me, but young professional women talking about the book in front of me on the sidewalk as we walked down the street. And
interesting. When was this?
The book had just come out. It'd been out for a month or 2. And it was that big that you could hear just people talking about it. And they were positive, and they were talking about how it was encouraging them to do stuff, because I was, totally eavesdropping. I'll admit it now, because yes. Are we allowed to talk about the problems with Lean In yet?
Not yet, because between that TED Talk and the release of Lean In, a very influential article came out in The Atlantic. Do you remember what it was called?
No.
Why Women Still Can't Have It All by Anne-Marie Slaughter.
Oh, Anne-Marie Slaughter. Yes.
So I actually thought, when I was thinking back on that timeline, I was like, oh, that must have followed Lean In. Just as a response to Lean In or something. And no, it didn't. It preceded it. I mean, it was a response. It may have been some
in the zeitgeist or the
reaction to the TED Talk and to her.
That article.
Her,
yes.
Whole spiel. But I think, it preached a very
basically said that you couldn't have a family where both parents had high-end jobs. That was basically the gist of it, because they had a family crisis, and she was working at the State Department, and her husband had some big job. I can't remember what he did. Oh, he was a professor.
Correct.
And so she gave up the job in working with Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. And basically this was her cri de coeur, saying the society's not set up. We can't have 2 parents working around the clock. And she was jetting off because it's Secretary of State. You're going from country to country. And
And she said, and I just sent you a quote.
Oh, I still strongly believe that women can have it all and that men can too. I believe that we can have it all at the same time, but not today, not with the way America's economy and society are currently structured. My experiences over the past 3 years have forced me to confront a number of uncomfortable facts that need to be widely acknowledged and quickly changed.
So she talks about, the societal barriers to, she talks about,
where's affordable childcare?
Right. The policy changes.
Where's the supportive workplace? Yeah. Paid sick time, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
Which becomes a New America Foundation.
Exactly.
That
and our friend Bridget at the Better Life Lab works, in partnership.
As part of that. And to Anne-Marie Slaughter's credit, has continued to fight the good fight and to find grant funding, to find ways to push this conversation forward. But at the time that article came out, was not loving Anne-Marie Slaughter, I must say. I just
really?
No, I didn't find it helpful. I found it
interesting.
Also, she came up to our founder, Carol Evans, who will be our guest next week and our big finale, and said she told Carol, "I'm coming after you, working mother."
Oh.
And it never happened. It never manifested. And we never knew what she meant. Because we're just trying to do the work every day, I don't know. So I felt it and so maybe it was we misconstrued something. I don't know. But I don't know. And also, have it all is a weird phrase. And,
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I found it so give up, young women. Just give up.
Interesting.
I don't know. What did you think?
I took it as highlighting the systemic challenges that are, that are still ongoing in respects. So I didn't interpret it that way, but that's interesting. But so same time, 2012, guess who is named as one of Time's most influential people?
Was it me?
It was you.
Was it Sheryl?
It was Sheryl. So she is, as that conversation's going on, she's recognized in that way publicly. And when you look at like how many times she's been named one of the most influential people in a variety of contexts and publications,
speaking at major events, like really life-changing, earth-shattering events. Yeah, she's there.
So this is, how in those influential people articles, they're written by somebody else?
Yes.
I don't know if you know that. So Muhtar Kent of Coca-Cola at the time wrote this quote.
"I've often said that this promises to be the women's century." Sorry. And Sheryl is exactly the kind of refreshing leader who is, by word, deed, and example, creating new opportunities, removing obstacles, and making a real difference in others' lives. And as a devoted, hands-on mother of two, she is also nurturing the priceless personal connections that matter most. I mean, I want someone to say that about me.
I know. So, yeah. So, okay. So that was happening in 2012. There were these Anne-Marie Slaughter, and there were a lot of other articles that came out. I think around then, the President of Barnard published. It
really was.
The conversation started really blooming. Meanwhile, as we said, Facebook in 2012, Facebook IPOs and Sandberg joins the board. And then in 2013, she publishes Lean In, right? Which relates back to the TED Talk, as we talked about. So essentially, it's this work Bible for professional women. And I use the word Bible intentionally because
Diane knew.
And because it's preachy. Not to get into
Yep.
It's I don't mean it like the Bible, like the almanac or whatever. I mean it is like the word from above in the corporate landscape, right? Like this is how to live your life. Right?
For sure.
So she talks about, I think you can interpret, she acknowledges the barriers that women are facing, the systemic challenges. She does. And she really not points the finger, but highlights, and feel free to chime in if you disagree with me, but highlights the ways in which individual women can be proactive and accountable about their success in the workplace. And we talked about the TED, the 3 pieces that
which is already individualistic at that point, right?
Right. So she's talking about sitting at the table, right?
That's the individual. Yep.
Right. Speaking up for oneself, not kind of shying away from not shying away from conversation, from
choosing the right partner, which
he talks about choosing the right partner.
And we spend 2 seconds on that because people change, circumstances change. Exactly. What are we looking for? Is there a foolproof plan for how partners are going to turn out?
Don't get me started on that particular one.
I'm just saying,
She says, when looking for a life partner, this is in the book, my advice to women is to date all of them. The bad boys, the cool boys, the commitment phobic boys, the crazy boys, but do not marry them. The things that make the bad boys sexy do not make them good husbands. When it comes time to settle down, find someone who wants an equal partner, someone who thinks women should be smart, opinionated, and ambitious, someone who values fairness or expects, or even better, wants to do his share at home.
Yeah.
These men exist, trust me, and over time, nothing is sexier. So,
which I fully agree, and true partnership, totally, I'm on board. But what do you even know when, that's also assuming that you know what it means to be a full-on partner for all this stuff, right? That to choose this partner, that's assuming that by something, is it genetics? Is it by gender? That somehow we know how to be the better partner.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's no systemic issues there either. It's just, you choose the right partner and all will be
right. And you're good. You're good to go. So, she had actually been married and then divorced. So she didn't choose the right person the first time. She did choose Dave Goldberg, who she felt was her equal and was very supportive of her growth and development in her career and her, her motherhood. And that was really
great. Yeah,
exactly. So, that was an important piece. And she later went on to acknowledge, I think with a lot of points in this book, she kind of went on to acknowledge kind of where there might have been holes in her logic and her approach. And she wrote a few Facebook posts about it, which I'll get to. But the third point she makes that you referenced earlier that you want to dive a little deeper in is don't leave before you leave.
Yes. Well, and even getting a seat at the table. I mean, those two, and don't leave before you leave. So I believe what she's referencing there is, so you've had a kid and you can't figure out how to make it work. And so you opt out, which was a big thing. If remember, it was it Lisa Belkin? Is that who the New York Times writer who did was it a bunch of Yale graduates that she went back and looked and none of them were working and and then she has since gone back and said she was wrong about that article. But that article was also, that predates a lot of this stuff, but that women with amazing degrees from amazing institutions were not choosing not to work, and then figuring out and also I think one of the things that they talked about with that article later on, 10 years later, was ooh, you don't really give a thought to maybe this partnership does, if you're going to live on one salary, maybe there's divorce, maybe there's death, maybe there's illness. Who knows? Maybe your kid has developmental issues. Who knows?
Yeah.
And that just based on some weird sunny disposition that everything's going to stay the same. But so that conversation was happening in kind of part of this mix, but also, getting a seat at the table. I mean, I've had the experience of being with a boss who would tell you he's super nice, super supportive, but being the only woman in the team as it grew, a team that I was supposed to grow, and I did, being looked at like I was a nut for it, all those things we talk about not being heard, the thing with the Obama women, in the administration, the women of the Obama administration, where they realized they were constantly being talked over and their ideas picked up by men. And so they did it. They all kind of made an agreement that like, if you said something, I would second it and like kind of reiterate it. And we would live, these things I mean, that's not even structural. That's like baked into our DNA that we're now listening to women. And so if you have one woman on a team and she finally makes it to the table,
right.
Yeah. Also, if she can't afford childcare, if she is seen as less than because she's mommy tracked, because they make assumptions because she must not care about her career because she has like all that stuff. You may decide that you need to leave before you really wanted to leave.
Yeah.
And those were the problems I had with the book. I shall step down from the soapbox right now.
Well, there's a couple of more pieces that I want to
okay, please
highlight
do.
again.
I shall
I'm
pass
following
the soapbox to you.
the chronology. So 2014, she becomes a billionaire, and then she launches a campaign. So we didn't talk about this, but leanin.org, like Lean In Circles was a phenomenon.
Oh, yeah, she creates the foundation. Amen. Anything that supports women. Amen. And this was also a thing. This was a time when you were getting interviewed. I was getting interviewed too. And someone was like, it was some NPR thing. And I remember I was at an offsite thing, and I remember using someone's office to record the radio interview. And basically they wanted me to say something like bad about Lean In. And yes, that rant I just went on with the soapbox, that's for reals, whatnot. But getting women together to know their power and to know that a billionaire woman's success is like turning around and saying, let me see how I can help other women.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
No,
and
agreed.
that these things are great, and that the foundation is, has love in its heart and doing all this sort of stuff. And I spoke basically both sides ism with this answer. And the report after they were done recording me. This is why I will never become like some pundit on TV. He said to me, well, you really thread the needle on that one.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yes, because there is pros and cons of what, I deeply have feelings about the blinders to systemic thing, the pressures that pull down on women. And then to say, some of the ideas in the book were take up more room at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, interesting. And that it's in my head, like I know it. And that, when you're in those big meetings and there's like the table seats and then there's the seats around the room, and she's saying, don't immediately go to the outside seats, go to the inside, sit at the goddamn table. Those are real.
True.
Those are real.
True. Do you know how many Lean In circles there are, by the way?
No. How many? And like, how did that go? Because they were everywhere for a brief moment.
Yes, but today, there are more than 35,000 circles in over 160 countries.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And doesn't that strike you like a bit of like the consciousness groups of like the 70s, just women getting together and supporting each other and having an ear that says, I not only hear what you're saying, I understand what you're saying. That's awesome.
Yeah. But then, parallel to her career were these kind of, not parallel to her career. I'll just get to the point. 2018, there was the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal, which we could, basically go on about.
Right. If we were a different political podcast, we would go on about the use of data and what they were doing. Yes.
Right. So then a whole slew of articles came out. One of them named Lean In's Sheryl Sandberg problem. Another how the end of Lean In, how Sheryl Sandberg's message of empowerment fully unraveled.
Really?
Yeah. So in 2018, with this Cambridge Analytica scandal, Lean In took a little bit of a beating. So there were one of the more positive ones is from Bloomberg. After 5 years of leaning in, everything and nothing has changed.
Yeah.
So there were some pretty prominent and biting responses to this. And one of them I'm going to post the quote for you to read. But our friend Catherine Goldstein,
Yes,
from the Double Shift, formerly from the Double Shift, or the founder of Double Shift, she had a fantastic piece on Vox where she talked about having been in a Lean In circle and talking about, really trying to follow the doctrine as and the title of her article was, and this was December 2018, I was a Sheryl Sandberg super fan. Then her Lean In advice failed me.
Ooh,
So
she is a great writer.
Yeah. So there was a lot of that. And then this person also wanted to weigh in.
Ooh, Michelle Obama says, I tell women that whole you can have it all. Nope, not at the same time. That a lie. Obama told
the rest of the quote. Yeah.
That's a lie. Obama told a sold out crowd at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn during December 1, which, by the way, you could not get tickets for, as someone who lives down the street from the Barclays Center.
Right.
He told a sold out crowd at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn during a December 1 stop on a tour promoting her memoir. It's not always enough to lean in because that shit doesn't work all the time. I'm telling you, it is an aspect. I completely agree. It's an aspect of it. Oh, and then let's be a woman who walks into the room with brown or black skin.
Yeah.
An Asian woman. As women of color will always say, white women say they walk in and their gender is first. Women of color walk in and they have race and gender walking in with them. And that's the double bind. And that's the judgment that they're immediately seen that way before you even get to the skills. And so that's what Mrs. Obama is talking about there.
Yeah.
And it does not work all the time.
Yeah, there are.
And man, I don't want to write a book and have Michelle Obama have a comment on it. Let's just, how about you and me just decide to write a book that Michelle Obama likes? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so she's speaking from this place of privilege,
Yeah.
Race.
Hey, this worked for me. Why can't it work for you?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now, and she acknowledged some of those points. So she went through a personal tragedy and lost her husband, and it was awful. And she wrote a book with our friend Adam Grant about it. And she started to, I think, see some of the cracks in her.
To her great credit, said, hey, maybe I got some of this wrong.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, she said in a Facebook post, it was a Mother's Day Facebook post, I'm especially thinking of the many mothers across the country and the world who are raising children on their own. People become single parents for many reasons: loss of a partner, breakdown of a relationship by choice. 1 year and 5 days ago, I joined them. For me, this is still a new and unfamiliar world. Before, I didn't quite get it. I did not really get how hard it is to succeed at work when you're overwhelmed at home. I did not understand how often I would look into my son or daughter's crying face and not know how to stop the tears.
Yeah.
She says for many single mothers, this is the only world they know. And she talks about the financial burdens. She talks about, of single motherhood.
Yeah, for sure. Whatever their great wealth was, they were living off a 2-parent income, whatever they had set up. And even, she's a billionaire and all that sort of jazz. But when it's all on you, that's a lot different than, my brother is a widower. And I was just saying this to my husband yesterday that one of the things that he said early on when his wife passed away, when my sister-in-law died, it was to say, I lost my best friend, but also someone to bounce all these ideas off, all these decisions off of.
Mhm.
And that's the, how do you always like lean in, take up real estate when, you're also dealing with 100% of what's happening at home.
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
feel that comment. Recently, when she made this announcement a couple weeks ago, the press kind of took another opportunity to say, let's reflect on her life and career to date
Yeah.
and see what kind of impact she's had, both on Facebook or Meta and on feminism, essentially.
Yeah.
So there are a bunch of different articles that came out in the New York Times specifically, but there are a bunch of different places that where there was some reflection. But in one of the articles, Katha Pollitt, who's a feminist columnist, she remembered that many friends and her daughter found Lean In to be, really wise when it came out.
Yeah.
But she said, society has moved on. We pay a lot more attention now to the structural disadvantages women have. Everything from sexual harassment to childcare to no paid maternity leave. People have just moved on from seeing women's work lives as being determined by their own gumption.
That is so freaking true. Isn't that the difference of like 10 years ago to now? Like with the systemic, how we see systemic racism. Like, if you've been reading, you knew it, but did you really feel it? And I feel like it's much more tangible for those of us who don't experience it every day. And the same thing for women. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that has been so shocking is the Me Too movement. That the thought of, I spent 10 years talking about work-life policy. Like, I still do, but, in it every day, judging companies and blah, blah, blah. And then to realize that, oh my God, how unsafe women are at work. And like, wait, we haven't even solved the safety issue.
Right.
And that it was like, like I felt like we were running ahead on basic things like paid maternity leave and paid sick days and flexible work when we actually are still 3 steps behind just making it that you can show up to work safely.
Right.
Yeah.
So another quote in one of these New York Times articles was by Rosa Brooks, who's a professor at Georgetown Law, who she said, not everything should be leaned into. It's not just how do I succeed on the terms of the workplace, but how do I change the workplace and make it a force for good?
Right.
So, I think to your point, right, there's a lot that we've unpacked about what's broken about the workforce, what's broken about our society. And, that Lean In was not about that.
Right.
So much. That being said, if we look at, and, I think to some extent, there is, I don't credit Sheryl with all of this progress, but since Lean In came out, or since her TED Talk, so she tells the story, that women are not making it to the top of any profession anywhere in the world. She says 190 heads of state, 9 are women. This is in 2010. Of all the people in parliament in the world, 13% are women. In the corporate sector, women at the tops out at 15-16%. The numbers have not moved since 2002 rather. And she says, then they're going in the wrong direction.
Yep.
We've moved the needle. I don't have the exact numbers that are comparable, but the proportion of women in mid-market senior management roles grew to 32% in 2021. As of September 1st, 2021, there are 26 women serving as heads of state or government in 24 countries. I am not crediting her with the transformation of our society to, to moving women to leadership. But there has been a lot that's changed. Also, the fact that the Me Too movement exists, there have been so many developments that I think lean in, whether you buy into, again, the doctrine or
100% or 25%. It was saying something that was interesting, that, it resonated. It completely, and I felt you're younger than me. For me, I felt I was a little too old for it because it was like, come on. Like I had already leaned in. I was surviving. My kids were a little older by that point, but especially, anything that gets women who don't have children yet. And there's an old stat that I looked up a million years ago, and so it maybe has changed, but it's something like 85% of women over 45 have kids. But I have always said our worst enemy, this is really strong language, but our worst enemy at work is often other women, young women, before they have kids. Like you never think about it until it's you. And so I always felt like executives would look down at the women and say, see, even not all women agree. And it's like, right. Man. And what Sheryl, especially the thing about finding a partner, and thinking strategically about this partner that you're going to, it connects with the studies they often do out of Harvard Business School, where they'll survey the graduates and they'll say, who's going to do the work when you have kids? Right. And it's like, nobody has a plan. The men think the women are going to do it. The women are like, I don't know who's going to do it. And, and these are studies from 2020, this is not 1984. This is now. And we still haven't figured it out. And so Sheryl and Marie Slaughter, at the time, I was like, what are you saying? But these are important conversations that, especially to the generation that hasn't committed, hasn't decided on a family yet, or, it may, please think ahead to this stuff. I didn't think ahead to any of this stuff. It didn't occur to me. And yet, because then we're kinder to the people who are going through it with the young children. Yeah. We're kinder to people who have disability or health issues. We're kinder to people who are getting a degree and going to school at night. We're just kinder to each other because we realize that the perfect always on employee is ridiculous, but we all seem to go through it at the beginning of our career. Right. And we judge others who don't. And so thinking ahead to things like what should my partner, what conversations should we be having? That's a valuable, thanks for bringing that up, Sheryl, Right. I also think Sheryl is getting, now that she's left her perch, she's getting, I feel like like a Jurassic Park, all the little dinosaurs went whoop, whoop. And you know how they always attack female CEOs? It just, I don't know. There always seems to be oh, let's write the nasty story about some female CEO. I feel like all of a sudden we're like, wait, the billionaire COO, what's going on with her? I feel like it's like fair game. She had been attracting rightful scrutiny on the role of Meta and the role of Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, all that sort of stuff. But you feel like I feel in the media that there's a turn of the little dinosaurs going, oh, let's check her out. Right. So she's just another woman executive. So we ought to blame her for everything. But yes, that's amazing that the lean in circles are still so vibrant.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So.
Oh, well, thank you for that. That was as someone who is always going up the mountain as she is and reaching pinnacle after pinnacle, that was still twists and turns.
Yeah. She had an interesting path. And we didn't even talk about the January 6th uprising and the role of Facebook in that. And what she said about it. But that is for you, our listeners, to look up.
Go do a deep dive. And that's a masterclass in crisis communication gone wrong. So, yeah.
Exactly.
So, it must be hard, everything's peaches and cream, and then it curdles, and it's very hard to turn.
Yeah.
So I kind of get it fundamentally, but like also, you should have made you didn't bank that curve very well. You like ran into the wall or something. So anywho, well, thank you so much for listening. This has been a wonderful episode, and we're coming to the end of season 4. And so I'll pass to you, Raquel. What do we always say?
Keep hustling.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.